Hello everyone and welcome to 9-inch Charge. Today it is all about dragons. We're going to be doing a Warscroll review for the knight-draconis and the Stormdrake Guard. Those of you familiar with the channel will know that I've been really excited for these guys. Definitely looking forward to including them in my cities and in my Stormcast armies. So I've been really looking forward to seeing how they play on the tabletop. It's really great to have new dragons. I don't dislike the Stardrake kit, but these are a bit more classic and a bit more dynamic, and they're a bit more up my street compared to that. So let's have a look at how they play on the tabletop. But just before we do, please drop this video a like if it's something that you enjoy, and please subscribe to the channel if you would like to see more like this in the future. We've got lots more Warscroll reviews coming up. Okay, so firstly, the knight-draconis. Only one who is truly bonded with the Draconith can become a knight-draconis. Such unity is symbolised by the flaming blades these champions wield, and they eagerly bring burning death to any foe that stands before them. A knight-draconis has a 12-inch move, a 3+ save, a bravery of 8 and 11 wounds, and comes in at 255 points. They have the keywords Order, Stormcast Eternals, Thunderstrike, Hero, Monster, Draconith, Knight and knight-draconis. So the first thing to say about this Warscroll is, unlike a lot of other units out there, like the Black Dragon or like the Phoenix, things that are kind of comparable, this Warscroll never ever degrades depending on wounds that it's taken. It always fights and moves at its full strength. So it is never getting sloppier than a 12-inch move, which is pretty good. 3+ save is nice, especially as we know all-out defense will give that a 2+ if when needed. Bravery 8 and 11 wounds, so nice and solid. The knight-draconis is armed with an Aeon Fire blade. This has 5 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 2s, has a rend of 3, and does 2 damage. I have to admit, I did have to reread that the first time I saw it, because rend 3 is mental. That Aeon Fire blade has a higher rend than the draconic fangs and talons. So for anything with a save of 4 or less, there's going to be no save that can be taken against the Aeon Fire blade whatsoever. I mean, for a lot of things, it might as well just be mortal wounds. Phenomenal. 3s to hit and 2s to wound make all-out attack a little bit tasty on this guy, making that 2s and 2s. I have to admit, these new command abilities have really been considered when writing these Warscrolls, it seems. Having a 3+ save, being able to increase it to a 2, having a 3 to hit, leaving you space to increase it to a 2. And it's nice to see just good rules writing like this. The next melee weapon is the Draconic Fangs and Talons. They have a longer range of 3, 4 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, a rend of 2, and 2 damage. I think they're great. They are getting outshone a bit by the Aeon Fire blade, but they have more rend and are more reliable than, for example, the claws of the Black Dragon. The knight-draconis missile weapon is the Draconic Flame Stream. It has a range of 12 and 1 attack. A Draconith can unleash annihilating streams of wormflame with each exhalation. Do not use the attack sequence for an attack made with a Draconic Flame Stream. Instead, roll a dice. On a 1 to 2, nothing happens. On a 3 to 4, the target suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 5 or a 6, the target suffers D6 mortal wounds. Great to have some mortal wound output as well. It's a little bit swingy because it can do nothing or a massive D6. For me, it's just great to have a shooting attack on there because I play Living Cities, which means it will be able to move again after it's shot at the end of the shooting phase. So far, he's been absolutely outstanding. 9 damage to attacks, potential for mortal wounds at range, good amount of wounds, good mobility, good save. No after save, however, so he will be susceptible to mortal wounds. An easy way for your opponent to put mortal wounds on the knight-draconis will be with spells. However, the knight-draconis has the ability Arcane Heritage. Whether raised within the temple vessels of the Seraphon or born in the wilds of the realms, every young Draconith has developed resistance to the arcane. Each time this unit is affected by a spell or the abilities of an endless spell, you can roll a dice. On a 4+, ignore the effect of that spell or the effects of that endless spell's abilities on this unit. This in itself should be enough to put your opponent off even attempting to cast spells against this unit, because obviously first you've got to roll to cast, then you've got potentially an unbind, and then even then once you get through, you're looking at a 50-50 chance. And what's most important is, this is the protection against mortal wounds that you're looking for on this unit. Now I know mortal wounds do come in all shapes and sizes these days, you can get them from shooting and from melee, but spells are predominantly where you're going to get them from. So this is a great defensive ability in place of a ward. However, you can, because he's a hero, also give him the Amulet of Destiny. So now you're looking at a 3+ save being made to a 2+ save with all-out defense, a 5+ ward save, and a 4+ ignore spells. Now all of a sudden, combined with his massive output, he's also really defensive. The next ability is Dragged into the Tempest. Propelling themselves skyward with immense force, a Draconith drags their victims into the clouds to be torn asunder and hurled down onto the battlefield as a grisly ruin. In the combat phase, after all the attacks have been resolved, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inches of this unit and roll a dice. If the roll is greater than that unit's wound characteristic, your opponent must pick one model on that unit. That model is slain. This is a lot of fun. It's really strong against units with just 1 wound because you're pretty much guaranteed to take them out. But what you really want to do is find stronger units with wounds characteristic of 3s, 4s and 5s and have a go. There's so many heroes about now with a wound characteristic of 5. I'd be targeting them efficient for a 6. If you get it, it'll be phenomenal. It's also going to put the fear of God into ogre players and Sylvaneth if they're taking Kurnoth hunters. Loads of great choices. His last ability is Wrath of the Draconith. At their champion's command, the Stormdrake Guard loose the searing force of their mounts when their foe least expects it. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can pick one friendly Stormdrake Guard unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit that has not made a shooting attack in that phase. That unit can shoot. Obviously, the more Stormdrake Guard you have in the unit, the better. It's got a potentially really great effect. You know, for example, if you've got a unit of, say, 4 Stormdrake Guard and they all roll really well, you're looking at 4d6 mortal wounds additional. I don't feel like this is likely because I don't think people are going to take them in units that large, and you probably won't roll that well, let's be honest. But it has some potential once per game. Where I think this would be really good is that if you're stuck in combat with something and you want to clear it out so you don't have to make a retreat move or you want to move somewhere else to charge somewhere, what you're up against doesn't have that many wounds left, doing this in your hero phase first to help you clear them off, allowing you to move out somewhere else, would be really handy. But I don't think it's that situational because 3 mortal wounds are still 3 mortal wounds with a 12-inch range. And that is the knight-draconis Warscroll. I think that he's absolutely phenomenal. I think he's going to be great on the tabletop. Really something to worry about. Really fearsome. Loads of damage. Good defense. Buffs other units. And most importantly, makes Stormdrake Guard battle line. So let's move on to Stormdrake Guard and see how they hold up next to their commander. The profile of the Stormdrake Guard is very nearly the same as the knight-draconis. The only difference being they have a wounds characteristic of 9 instead of 11, but they still have that 12-inch move, a 3+ save, and a bravery of 8. They're 145 points for 1 or 285 points for 2. Their Draconic Flame Stream works the same, and the profile for the Draconic Fangs and Talons is also the same. They also have the same Drag to the Tempest rule, and they also have Arcane Heritage. So far they stack up pretty nicely against the knight-draconis, showing a lot of his abilities and a lot of his stats and attacks. So let's have a look where they differ. Unfortunately, they don't all carry Aeon Fire Blades. Each model in a Stormdrake Guard unit is armed with one of the following weapons: a Drake Rider's Lance or a Drake Rider's Warblade. A Drake Rider's Warblade has a range of 1, a massive 6 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 1, damage 1. And the Drake Rider's Lance has a range of 2, 3 attacks, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 1, damage 1. However, the Lances come with the ability Merciless Impact. This unit's Drake Rider Lances have a rend characteristic of 2 and a damage characteristic of 2 if this unit made a charge in the same turn. For me personally, this puts the Lances ahead of the sword. I think you really need to be able to do that damage on the charge. If you're not doing that damage, you're going to be stuck with a rend 1, damage 1 weapon anyway, regardless of how many attacks it has. So for me, they're the option that I'd choose. It's no Aeon Fire Blade, but for 30 more points, you're getting 2 of these guys, each with lances and each with Draconic Fangs and Talons, so I wouldn't complain too much about it. The next way that they differ from the knight-draconis is the ability Draconic Onslaught. To reclaim their old empire, the Draconith and their riders fight together as a single furious whole, savaging any who cross their path. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can make a normal move. Roll a dice if any enemy units are within 12 inches of this unit after that normal move. On a 2+, this unit can immediately attempt to charge. With the way deployment is in many of the scenarios now, it's not unlikely that you'll see a unit of Stormdrake Guard make a successful charge in the hero phase of turn 1. And even if you don't make that charge, you've got a movement phase then to make up for it. Personally, I'm not too fussed about the charge because with this it gives you a potential 2 moves, 24-inch movement. You're going to be 3 inches away, you're going to be able to use a command ability to get a reroll, so it's not the end of the world. What I want to see from this is being able to throw those units hurtling 24 inches across the tabletop, breathing fire and then getting the charge that they want. This additional move is especially useful considering the large footprint that they have of their bases, and it's always really difficult to try and squeeze them in if you're trying to make a long charge with a unit like this. So hopefully they'll have no issues guessing where they need to go. There is more to say about the Stormdrake Guard. They don't quite work like a normal unit does. They have some quite specific abilities that make them work quite differently to how you'd have seen other units on the tabletop. The first one is the dispersed formation. This means that its coherency rules work within 3 inches instead of 1 inch, which just makes sense for practicality because those wings are going to be absolutely massive. One model can be a Stormdrake Prime, add 1 to the attack characteristics of that model's melee weapons, and that means it can issue commands to the unit. And this unit is a monstrous regiment, so one model in this unit can carry out a monstrous rampage each turn. That just helps clear up where the rampage is coming from. You just have to pick one model. So that's everything covered. It feels like there's been a lot of abilities to cover in this. It's not a very concise Warscroll. It's a Warscroll that you're going to have to learn inside and out, but the rewards are definitely there. Firstly, who doesn't want to take a load of dragons, a unit of dragons? And secondly, on the tabletop, they look absolutely ferocious, really phenomenal, really something to be worried about and wary of. But there's no avoiding them. I think turn 1, they are going to be in your face. So get your screens up. Make sure there's no space for them to land in between and around your screens, and just you'll have to weather the storm. I can't wait for them to come out. In the comments, let me know which you think is better. Obviously, both is the best option, but if you could choose one, either the Stormdrake Guard or the knight-draconis, please let me know in the comments because it was really helped me make my decision there of what I'm going to put into my cities army. For 30 points, do you want more move and more attacks? Or for 30 less points, do you want the Amulet of Destiny and a Rend 3 weapon? If you've enjoyed this video, please drop it a like, and if you'd like to see more like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel. This has been 9-Inch Charge, and I will catch you next time.